Hi, today I want to talk about what makes a good wine versus a bad wine. And let's just start out up front. By bad wine, I don't mean one that's gone bad because it's been open too long or handled improperly or stored improperly, whereas, just plain undrinkable. And I'm talking about a lower quality. Think of it as, a nice, big, juicy, easy cutting, tender steak versus something that's been cooked to death and it's more like shoe leather. So we're kind of in that range. You can still eat shoe leather steaks, but they're not as good as a nice, juicy, tender one. So when we talk about a good wine in that respect, that's what we're going for. Now there's a handful of characteristics you want to look at. First of all, you have to know what you're drinking. Your way to judge a Cabernet Sauvignon is going to be a little different than how you would judge a Chardonnay, or how you would judge, say, a Sauvignon Blanc. So each has their own characteristics that you have to judge against. If you're drinking a Sauvignon Blanc, you expect it to be somewhat acidy. It's an acidic wine. You might expect it to have some certain flavor notes, a grassiness to it. It should be bright and clean. Bright. What do I mean by bright? It's kind of like, it just kind of pops. It's like, it's awake in your mouth when you drink it. These are really horrible ways to describe something, but if you have one and if you like Sauvignon Blanc, you know what I'm talking about. It's a bright, clean, crisp flavor. For soda drinkers, you think something like 7-Up or some sort of lemon lime soda pop. It's like, you expect that, and that's what you should expect from a particular wine. It should meet a certain profile. So got me a nice heavy-duty red here, and so from this I expect to have tannins. I expect to have some berry flavors. I expect to have possibly some dark cherry. It's a Cab Sav. What am I going to say? But I do like drinking those. So I expect a lot. I expect a decent amount of mouthfeel. I expect a lot of things. If I don't get those, then here's my top of my scale. If I'm missing some tannins, they're not quite right, it drops down. If I taste the acid too much in a Cab Sav, drops down. If I taste a lot of alcohol in any wine, it drops down. So these are the characteristics I'm talking about. Okay, you should have this, and you should have that, and you should have some of this and some of that for that particular wine. So that you kind of look at those things. If you don't find them, or you find too much or too little, it's there, but it's kind of hard to taste, or I can't really get it, but I sort of get it, but then drop it down your scale of really good versus a bad wine. So let's take a look at some more general ones. First of all, I guess generally speaking, you should hit the main flavor notes of the wine you're drinking. Again, if you're drinking a Cab Sav, you should hit this set. If you're drinking a Chardonnay, you should have this set. Sauvignon Blanc has got its set, and so on. So you don't expect to have a nice buttery tasting Cabernet Sauvignon because that's not characteristic. Similarly, you don't expect a Chardonnay to be nice and tart and crisp because that's not characteristic. So within each individual varietal or particular blend, you expect to hit certain things, and those should be there. Now, in addition, let's break it down a little more. Acid is a very important component of wine. If a wine lacks acid, it just tastes flat. And I'm going to go back to the soda metaphor. Fizzy drinks, if you prefer that, bubbly drinks, things like that. And I'm talking non-alcoholic here. So if you have Coca-Cola, being a very classic standard, that you've opened up and sat down and walked away, and 3 days later you come back, oh yeah, there's where my Coke went. And you take a sip of it, it's not going to taste good. All the little bubbly things are gone. It's literally flat, is how it's referred to in the U.S. It's gone flat, meaning no bubbles. So at that point, it's not going to taste right. It's lost its kick, so to speak. So you're going to find a similar type of thing if you don't have enough acid in a wine. It's going to taste kind of flat. It's also referred to in the wine world as flabby. It's like, it's kind of it's all over. It's not good. It doesn't have that, that focus that acid gives it. Now, your whites, a lot of your whites, your crisp whites, crisp, you may as well just say acidic whites, because that's what crisp is really referring to. It's that tartness, that acid. They're expected to be higher in acid. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, that's the way they are. They pretty much come out that way uniformly. You know, you do all the right steps in your fermentation process on certain white grapes, and I'll use Sauvignon Blanc or Sauv Blanc, and it's going to come out with a slightly sour, acidic, crisp taste. That's how it should be. That's the way the grapes made it. And that's fine. That you expect that profile. Just like if you suck on a lemon, it's going to be pretty acid. So you expect that, and that's the way it should be. So why do you want that? Well, some people like it, some don't. Some people like that acidity. But that acidity also helps with certain foods you eat. So if you've got the really high fat content fish, like a salmon or a tuna or something like that, that acid just cuts right through that and makes that food much more enjoyable. Now, without that acid, Sauvignon Blanc would probably taste pretty bad, and the same could be said for other white, crisp grapes. So acid is a key factor. You've also, in your reds in particular, got tannins. Those are a key factor. It builds structure to the wine. It adds mouthfeel. It adds a certain texture to the wine. And again, depending on what type of wine you're drinking, you should have a degree more or less of tannins in it. Now, if it's a white, you probably are not going to have any tannins. So, those things are given. Let's see, what else do you want to look at? The alcohol. Okay, you can have a, 14% by volume alcohol content in a glass of wine, and it doesn't burn. It's just totally wonderful to drink. You can have a 7% alcohol in a bottle of wine, and it can just burn. It's like, burns your nose, burns everything. It's like, okay, well, why is it this one's lower, this one's higher, this one burns, this one doesn't? What's happening? And this is what it comes down to. It's balance. If you don't have enough of something or too much of something, it's out of balance. That's what makes a wine good or bad. If you have a high alcohol wine, but you've got other things, tannins and the fruit and everything else up there at the right levels for that wine, it's in balance. And that way no one thing stands out to the degree that it impairs the flavor or the experience of that particular wine. So that really, when you boil it down, is what makes a good wine. A wine that has all the elements and it is in balance. Now, to go from good to exceptional, you get some other things. You get complexity in there. What is complexity? It's like, okay, it's complicated. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it means, but what that really comes down to in terms of wine is there is a lot going on, so that each taste and each sniff is a little bit different. You're getting a lot more out of that wine than just the one, monotone tune. It's like a symphony. You don't hear just a violin or just a trumpet. You get violins and trumpets and percussion and brass and all these things that all come together in your ears and sound good. If you've ever heard like a low young age band or orchestra play, they don't sound good because they're out of balance. You got this little kid over here playing one speed, and this one over here playing a different speed, and this one over here is playing a completely different song than everybody else, and it's kind of like this cacophony of noise. So if you get a wine that's very out of balance, it's like that cacophony of noise in your mouth. And it's like, oh, it's not going to kill me. I can drink it, but it's just not good. It's like too much alcohol, it's too much acid, too much whatever. Not enough this, it's flabby, it's over tannins, and it just burns my nose. So no, that's not a good wine. It's not going to hurt you to drink it. You're not going to get sick from it unless you drink way too much, but I doubt that would happen. But then you pull in this other glass of wine, and it's like, oh, yeah, this is like, looks good. And, I smell this, and wow, I smell that, and it smells like grandma's house, and it smells like, I don't want to go there, but anyway, you smell a lot of different things, and then you taste it, and it's like, oh wow, that tastes like fresh baked cookies, and another sip, and it tastes like vanilla pudding, and you take another sip, and I'm making stuff up, but you taste a lot of different things, you smell a lot of different. That's your complexity. There's a lot going on that went into it. The grapes, the fermentation process, the yeast that was used. And when I'm talking about the grapes, I'm not talking about, okay, it's Cabernet Sauvignon grapes. All Cabernet Sauvignon grapes are not created equal. So you get some that grow on the sunny side of the hill and some that grow on the shady side of the hill. Well, which is better, the sunny ones? Not if you're in a really sunny area. You maybe want the ones that grow on the shaded side because they're not as overblown as the ones that grow on the sunny side. Now, depends on the vineyard, depends on the location. That it goes back to your terroir. So you get the ones that are the most balanced in their growing. You got just enough sun, just enough water, just enough chill at night. So all the factors came together on this particular slope of a vineyard. So this one slope out of the entire 500,000 acres of vineyard is the best. And you take those, you make a barrel of wine out of them, you put that barrel into a bottle, and you put that bottle into a glass, and it was fermented with the perfect yeast and the perfect conditions, and you get just something that's stellar in the glass. But you take grapes from the other side of the hill, well, maybe they got a little bit too much sun. So they might be a little too jammy, and they got a little more sugar in them. So they get a little more alcohol, and they don't get quite the same care as the other grapes got. So maybe they got a little too warm during fermentation. Maybe fermentation didn't go on quite long enough. So you get these other factors. So it's a little too sweet, it's a little too green tasting, or it's too acid. These are things that throw it out of balance and make, even though they're the same hill, just different sides, they can taste completely different. So again, it's the handling of the grapes, the way the grapes are grown, the way they're turned into wine, the whole process there. How are they stored? Were they stored too warm? Or they chilled right? These types of things. When they were shipped, was it like 150 degrees out that day and there's no air conditioning in the shipping container? So they cooked it before it even got to the store? You don't know until you try it sometimes. So these are the things you're looking for. Balance is probably the number one thing. If you can taste one thing very strongly over everything else, or can't perceive a particular part of it, then it's probably out of balance. And how much, the degree there, is kind of up to your own palate to determine. So if you get something that you take a sip, it's like, oh yeah, I can taste a little bit of acid there, I can taste some fruit, a little bit of sweetness even, and I know it's got alcohol in it because I kind of, my head starts spinning and my nose starts doing whatever it does, but there's a little bit of that in there. It's like, oh, okay, it's like, it's got all these things going on at once, and let me try another sip. Yeah, those things are still going on, but I'm getting a little something else in there too. Okay, so that's a good wine. Yeah, it keeps you interested, keeps you awake and aware of what you're drinking. But you pick one up and it's like, whoa, boy, is this sour? It's like, this is not a white wine, or it's not a whatever. It's just, ooh, sour. Too much acid. Or you pick it up and it tastes like you're drinking table legs, and it's like, whoa, too much tannin. And, it's over oaked. It's whatever it is. Those are the qualities you're looking for. If one stands out really, really badly, then it's probably not a very good bottle. You might get some that instead of being all in balance this way, you get pretty much, but this one's a little bit higher, or this is a little bit lower, or this one over here is a little spiky, or trophy, or whatever. So little things are about. It's drinkable. It's a good table wine. It's good everyday wine. It's not perfect by any stretch, but it's not bad. So you can deal with a little out of balance. It's when they're way out of whack that you have to worry. Okay, so what are you looking for? Balance, balance, balance. If you pick up a glass of wine that's perfectly in balance, you can put it on your finger like this and let go at the top and it won't spill. Do you believe that? Try it. No, that's not balance. That's something I don't have, coordination. But no, balance is good in a wine, but that balance is inside the glass. Don't try and do it outside. All right? Hope you learned from that. Cheers. All right, so, and that's by law. And let me get this out here now because I'm going to butcher the way I say this, but it's AOC, which is something like appellation, which is a form of the word to name. And, okay, appellation, Appellation Origine de Contrôle, something like that. So, appellation or named region in this case, region of origin. So, Bordeaux would be your point of origin. This is where it came from, and it's named this, and its contrôle is controlled. So, yeah, that's a really bad translation, but AOC is what the country of France refers to as their wine laws.